I'm Debbie Alexander. I'm a developmental therapist with First Steps, and I also have worked with housing advocacy in the Nora area. And out of that came some education advocacy during COVID. And we have a group called Nora Explores, and we get together and do fun things as families. I got involved with our immigrant community many different times over the years. I live on the north side of Indy, and we have um, several different housing places that have kind of been optimal for our immigrant community to settle into when they first come here. So that's always just made us um, a great spot to welcome our immigrant neighbors. The church that I used to belong to had English classes, and so I participated in those in various ways over the years. But mostly my most recent interactions with the immigrant community in the Nora area was when we were working on some housing advocacy. The landlords were kind of doing the slum landlord scene, out of state, out of town, stating that they were providing services that they weren't, getting tax exemption from things that they shouldn't have been getting tax exemption for. Um, but more importantly, not providing safe living situations for our neighbors. Water that either didn't work or no hot water, electrical problems, just homes that weren't safe by according to the health department. Things that, in the middle of summer couldn't turn on the air conditioning in the middle of the winter, problems with heat, um, just lots of different scenarios. So, um, was involved in a social justice. Oh, a class studying social justice, biblical justice, actually. We started looking at how do we apply some of the things that we're learning about, and out of that came a group called Nora Neighborhood Ambassadors. It started out with just us at Nora at Neighborhood Ambassadors, and then we started partnering with lots of different groups instead of just functioning inside of our own silo. And um, yeah, so that group came up with 4 different advocacy groups, so, working on food insecurity, social services, educational services, and housing advocacy. So, I kind of oversaw several things in the main group, but also ran the education advocacy, for a while and got to know some families. It was really the housing advocacy where some of the people that I got to know well. One of the women, Jo Ree, was doing a lot of translation for us, and we got to be close, and I got to be close with her kids, and um, became like a grandparent to them. And then the whole family, it's just, an extended family, so they welcomed me in. Um, and during COVID, we did an education pod, um, just to help families who didn't have the English to do the work at home because they weren't quite sure of what was needed, because of the language barriers. So we had about 25 kids. We did a COVID pod during the 2021 school year. And then the next summer, we did a summer long camp. Just focus, we thought, do we do academics? And we focus more on those emotional, social experiences and just exposure, going to the zoo, walking to the library, learning, going to the parks and creek stomping, and, just without the facial, feedback that we get in social communication. The kids had lost a lot of their capacity to interact, and it was just interesting, worked a lot with Washington Township, hearing leadership there talk about how that was kind of manifesting itself in the school, so trying to take that feedback into our times together. Um and really just ended up saying our main focus is that social emotional development. How can we help families who, because it was COVID was traumatic for all of us, but imagine a refugee who's coming into town and trying to learn the language, and it was hard. And so, yeah, it was a difficult season for all of us, but especially, for people who didn't know the culture yet fully and didn't have all the cues to know, how to read the situation. So, we got really close during that time, and, that whole experience kind of turned into, like, just monthly gatherings, and it became much less programmatic and more, and sometimes we would invite, like, the Nora Elementary students, we would just have them publicize the events that we were having, and we would get other families, not all immigrant families, but other families that would join us when we go, to the apple orchard in the fall on a big bus, and that was really fun. But over time, it just became relationship based, um, and I think we learn the most about other cultures, um, and other people's experiences that might be different from us through relationship. You can read about it, you can talk about it, you can listen to all the political ideologies all the day long, but when you are face to face in experience with other cultures, that's where you learn the most. And so it was it was so encouraging to me to be able to learn so much about my different cultures. And I know one of the things that you guys are focusing on is what are the ways that your volunteers have been touched and impacted by their immigrant communities. And what I found was that investment of my time, those years that I was helping them navigate the educational system or the housing systems in areas that were new to them, because every country has their own routines, right, and their own protocols and their own ways of doing things, helping, investing that time and helping them navigate, um, was relationship developing, trust building, and noted that they were starting to invest time in me. Um, Recently, I've gone through a lot of changes, been through a divorce of 34 years. It's been a hard time of just feeling like losing a lot of family, and, um Christmas Day, you know, my kids went off to be with, my ex-in-laws, and Jorie and her family came over right at the time they left, and they spent the day with me. Um, they have welcomed me into the family in a time that I felt I had lost family, and that was so meaningful to me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be crying so much. But yeah, they showed up for me in ways that, were just so meaningful because of that relationship and that trust that had been built over the years, and it's the give and take. I think it's easy. I have personally noted and observed as a white American, I can slip into this paternalistic, um relationship with those who might be in more need than me at that moment in time. And I have observed it in others as well. Um, and I see that that brings death to relationships in the end. Um, what brings life to relationships is eliminating any power imbalance. Like, yes, I have something to offer you, but you have something to offer me. Families bringing over food for me in difficult times, or just letting their kids come over and play because they know that makes my heart happy, Um, that has been meaningful. So, when I abandoned that paternalistic attitude, like, I have something to give you and you need it, and I'm gonna give that to you. And instead, see, you have something for me and I have something for you, and our lives are so much the richer for it. That is what really, I have learned and been impacted by, just to be welcomed into a community, that has shown up for me as a family. They're my family. another thing we've done for the past several years is have a Friendsgiving, before Thanksgiving, we all gather and, we did it at the church that I was attending for a while, and then when I was no longer attending there this past fall, we, did it just at my house. I had 46 people in my house, and I think I counted at least 5 languages, at least 5 or 6 languages were being spoken, um, and lots of different cultures represented, and it's a pitch-in, so everybody brings and now we've done it, like, 3 or 4 years in a row, so it's like, "Oh, you brought that, I love that, I love" so we're learning each other's dishes. The first year I did it, I brought my grandfather who immigrated from Sweden in the early 1900s. I brought his recipe book. Just to like, this is how recipe boxes have all the things you shove in it, right? And so just to share, this is what my immigrant family brought over, the food and the recipes of their culture. And so we all kind of shared a little bit about our food. And over time, we don't always, I've learned that it's a little too chaotic to do a lot of meaningful sharing, as a group, but we still share and talk. Um, and we were laughing. It was either this year or last year where we had our plate full of food and everything was merging together. And with limited English, one of the moms said, "It all tastes better when we put it together, doesn't it?" And we're, just the symbolism of that was just so fun as, we put it all together and, not that it all has its own unique flavors, but you put it all on the plate and you eat it and it's so much better than just your one thing. Um, but what was very meaningful for me this year is as I needed to share with the families who are part of my life and part of my world and asking um, about my husband, I, shared what was going on at a little, at a basic level. And um, so we were cleaning up after the meal, and two of the ladies, one from Tehran, another from Eritrea. Eritrea. I always say that one wrong. Um, they said, "Come over here, we're praying." And I thought we were going to be praying for one of the women who was having surgery the next week. And the daughter prayed over me, just for the changes going on in my life and the pain and just the shattering of my life. Um, and then all of a sudden, my friend from Eritrea starts praying in Tangrini, and I just lost it. I just started sobbing. And then my friend from Tehran, starts praying over me in Arabic, and it was so meaningful to be prayed for in their heart language, um, to know the feelings, even if I didn't know the words. I knew the tone, I knew the heart of what was happening, and it touched me. Um, and so to be met in that space of, "This is my life isn't perfect. I've made mistakes. My spouse has made mistakes, and it didn't work out," and have them love on me in ways that, was just so meaningful. That so those 2 experiences, I feel like really, you know, my grandbabies coming I call them my grandbabies by love, not blood, coming over Christmas Day as my son was leaving and, just loving on me. And then also Valentine's Day obviously wasn't, like, my favorite day of the year, and they came over, and we made cookies, and we went for a hike, and I watched them so that their parents could go out and go for a date night, and that was a very fun day for us. So just the ways we show up for each other in what has become and what I, really try to make sure stays not a power imbalance, but as equals. We show up for each other as equals. I have things to offer them, they have things to offer me, and it's just been encouraging to see that process. Hopefully, I didn't cry so much that you can't use any of the